All right, good afternoon, good morning, everyone. Thanks for jumping in and joining us this afternoon for me, just after the lunch hour. Pleasure to speak to you this afternoon around SaaS management and reliving your aha moment here with Auvik. Wanted to do a couple of quick introductions before we dive in. So those not familiar, my name is Steve Petryschuk. I've been with Auvik for feels like forever, but about 7 years, doing a number of different things. Helping MSPs, across the world improve their network management practice. And I'm pleased to be joined today by John Harden. And just before I pass over to him for a quick introduction, a little bit of context. If you hadn't yet heard the news, a few weeks ago, Auvik acquired a company called Saaslio, and John was the co-founder of Saaslio, who really helped revolutionize the space of SaaS management for MSPs. So John, I'll pass it over to you.
Hey there, good morning, good afternoon for everybody here. Just after the lunch hour myself, and we appreciate everybody taking either their lunch or just a little bit after their break or before to join us. His name's John Harden. Steve, thanks for the introduction. Founder here at Saaslio, now a Auvik company, and thrilled to be able to talk today to all the Auvik customers about the opportunity that SaaS management will realize in your business. So we're very excited. I'll talk a little bit here more about the business once we get rolling, but it's great to meet everybody.
Sure. Yeah, so just as a bit of a walkthrough what the next period of time will look like, I think we have it booked for an hour. We'll try to leave some time for Q&A at the end. I will talk a little bit about why it is that Auvik made this significant investment in SaaS management and why we're bringing this to our partner base today. We'll talk a little bit about the Saaslio technology and sort of how that's being rolled out to our customers. And then we'll dive into what the future looks like as we start to bring Auvik and Saaslio closer together as sort of one product, one platform. And of course, what everyone's really looking forward to, showing a bit of a demo to get you a little bit more hands-on with Saaslio here towards the end of the session. And then we have a little surprise right at the end that we'll sort of tee up, and we'll communicate there right at the end of the session. So I'll dive in and get started. Just to sort of kick things off, why did Auvik make this investment in SaaS management? Why are we talking about this today? Why is this a trend that's really important to us? And really, it's because as we take a look across the IT industry, everything about SaaS is sort of up and to the right. And what we really mean by that is that the number of SaaS applications in use today is growing all the time. On average, there's over 100 SaaS applications for 100 SaaS person or 100-person company. That's more than one application per person. And I know, reflecting internally here at Auvik, I'm sure, our number is through the roof as well. And I'm sure if you look into your businesses, you'll probably see that there are a huge number of SaaS applications given the size of the organization. We're seeing a ton of growth in the usage of SaaS applications. So not only is usage growing, but along with that usage, the SaaS spend is growing. So you're getting a ton of people spending a ton of money on SaaS applications, some of which isn't being tracked and isn't being used, leading to this challenge of shadow IT, right? Where something like 8 out of 10 apps is a shadow IT, meaning that IT doesn't know or doesn't manage those. So that's definitely something that we want to be sort of shining some light on. I think I'll steal this from John for a second, and maybe you might say it later. The only company without shadow IT is the one-person company, right? Because it's one guy who knows everything he signed up for. Everyone else has it. So what we're basically seeing across the IT industry is that there's a revived interest in starting to manage the adoption and usage of SaaS tools. So there's a whole space called SaaS management platforms that basically help with the discovery, the management, and the security of SaaS applications. And what we've seen over the past year, according to CompTIA stats, is that especially for larger organizations, the jump is sort of happening from about 32% of organizations that had adopted SaaS up to about 42% in 2022. And I think this, while this is a trend industry-wide, I think if we were looking more at the type of businesses that we work with, right, the small mid-sized businesses, we're going to see these numbers are significantly lower. And some of the data that we have collected here at Auvik reflects this reality. So why is it that people are investing in SaaS management platforms? And I just want to call it, we did get a question here in the chat. We'll definitely be diving into that in a little bit as we get into the demo. So thanks, Larry, for the question. As we think about why people are investing in this space, one, people are expecting more visibility into the SaaS applications in use, right? If we think about the mandates being pushed down, to yourselves from your clients, if you're an MSP, or to your customers from the regulatory industries, the expectations around security and compliance of all applications and all data doesn't stop at the network perimeter. It goes everywhere, and that includes the SaaS applications. The challenge being that there's no visibility into this future of work, into this new network. It's almost non-existent. And so that's why, this whole problem of understanding what is in use, what applications people are using, what data is going where, is a huge problem that the industry is facing. So we asked our customers, we looked internally and we said, how are you managing SaaS traffic or SaaS applications today? And this is an area where, I spent a lot of the last year researching and spending a lot of time understanding what people are doing. And the answers we got back were basically that most people, don't have a solution. So if you look at that middle bucket, 45% of Auvik surveyed customers says that they have no way of discovering unauthorized SaaS application usage. That is quite a challenge. Of those that do have a process, a lot of it is manual documentation, manual spreadsheets, and a staggering 91% don't have a SaaS management solution at all in their business. So a ton of opportunity to help uncover this space. And as we think about that last bullet point, what this means for you, if you're an MSP here in the audience, is that your clients are also looking for ways to solve this problem. So there's a lot of opportunity to introduce new service offerings around SaaS management. So with that, I'll pass it over to John a little bit here.
Hey there, great kickoff, Steve. Obviously I come from the background of the IT, or rather not obviously, but I come from the background of IT, and we'll move to the next slide here. The reason that I built and helped take this business to life is really to help businesses understand what's going on in their SaaS landscape. I spent years trying to understand the SaaS that was in my prior business and understand all the tools employees were using and putting data and introducing new vectors to our organization for entry points. And I kind of got tired of it. It took a long time for us to map these things. We'd spend time putting information in spreadsheets and putting information into documents, and we'd be surveying employees. And it just wasn't efficient. It was all guesswork and very error prone. But it bothered me. I came from the world of IT, where we had visibility in all of our endpoints. We knew it was installed on the computer, and we knew what was on the device and all the information about that. We had great visibility within our network using Auvik Network Manager at the time, trying to understand what our topology looked like and what the infrastructure was around that. Yet we had to use manual error-prone processes to figure out SaaS. And what really bothered me about that was, in a lot of cases, many businesses, SaaS is probably one of the top 3 expenditures for their business. Steve's point earlier, everything is up and to the right, including the cost for SaaS. But even then, with the data out there, 53% of IT professionals surveyed said they intend to spend more on SaaS into 2023. So we know this isn't a problem that's going away. And if we roll to the next slide, we'll talk a little bit more about it. We'll get into the fact that Saaslio was built to solve this problem. You wouldn't ask your employees or your IT people to manually map a network topology map, or you maybe had to prior to Auvik Network Manager. You wouldn't ask people to figure out what is on their end device, because at the end of the day, those take way too long, they're very error prone, and they really just don't give you the answer you're looking for. So Saaslio was built with technology determined to let the employee build the software inventory list and the SaaS application list. At the end of the day, as we're working throughout our journey as employees, we're using SaaS tools the majority of our time. So why not watch the behaviors and understand what's being used and alert on risky behavior around that? So if we move to the next slide, we'll talk about this change that we've brought. We deploy Saaslio out into your environment and do all the collection for you. You don't need to go out there and ask the environments that you're surveying what they're using. You don't have to ask the employees what technologies they're using. You can deploy Saaslio via a RMM, Intune, group policy, or whatever your endpoint device manager is on Mac OS or on Windows, and instantly have a list of all the apps that are being used. No surveying, no asking, no trying to prospect what they're used. A lot of people are relying on like financial officers to pull the list or Excel spreadsheets to pull the list. But imagine if you had a slide, if we move to the next slide, imagine if you had a view that actually was built for you and curated. On the left, if you're an IT professional, you probably built this spreadsheet. I've built it a couple of times for lots of different things. It's, here's the app, here's the owner, here's who's in charge, here's what we pay. And they become stale. Even if you spent every waking moment trying to collect that list inside your business, if you got it down precisely right, next week when that when that marketing intern joins the company and decides that they need MailChimp to email blast, your list becomes stale because that intern probably didn't let you know what they were using, but they didn't have any problem putting an entire customer list in it on the way. And that's where we come from. We don't believe in manual processes that are error prone. We believe in automation and collection so that you can be more efficient with supporting your environments. So imagine instead of the word box on an Excel spreadsheet, you had Box in a data-driven platform that told you all the users in your environment that are using Box.com, all the behaviors, what are the accounts they're logging in with, what are the risks around Box, who should and shouldn't have access, what data are they putting in Box. Data-driven systems that help you manage SaaS systems, not just spreadsheets. And so if we move to the next slide, I think you'll get the idea. It's very similar to the value of what Auvik Network Manager is bringing for you today. It's onboarding, understanding more about your employee onboard timelines and understanding your environment onboard timelines, reducing that error manual process out of the work that you're doing today, improving resolution times. Everybody's dealt with a call into the IT center where, oh, I've lost access to Box, or, oh, this tool isn't working anymore, or, oh, the software doesn't do what it was doing before. And you kind of look at each other and go, I didn't even know that tool was in use. I didn't even know I was supposed to be supporting this tool. I didn't even know my teams were using it or my environments were using it. So getting down to the nitty gritty and the data and helping support your internal IT operations brings back tons of value. But at the end of the day, just like the employee is building their checklist or their software inventory by doing their job, they're also building the data to help support your IT ops. Imagine having a checklist that would give you all of the tools that an employee has signed up for and put sensitive business data into to be part of your IT ops process when you're onboarding or offboarding an employee, being able to have that checklist live from a platform versus the old archaic documentation you might be leaning into for managing and supporting those SaaS apps. All of those things become a reality with the Saaslio acquisition of Auvik Network Manager. I'll let Steve talk a little bit about our Better Together story, but we'll circle back with a demo to show a little bit about all that.
Yeah, just so we're not flipping back and forth between a couple of slides and a demo too often, I'm going to jump into a little bit of what sort of the Better Together and what sort of the plans are around the Auvik and Saaslio integration. And then we definitely want to show you the software, because that's the sort of probably what everyone's here for today. So as we sort of think about the Better Together, right? We're in an industry, we're in a world where there's often a lot of M&A activity, and we were super excited to make this investment to help improve the Auvik offering and to provide, start to solve new problems for our customers, ones that need to be solved today. And as we think about bringing this together, what we're really doing is we're combining the subject matter expertise of John and his team at Saaslio, who have built sort of the SaaS management space, and helping sort of shepherd that into the MSP community, where we have done, Auvik defined the network monitoring management space way back in 2015 as we sort of entered the world. And over time, we've become known, synonymous as the network management tool, especially in the MSP world. And so we're looking forward to helping to introduce SaaS managers to that space as well. And we're bringing to the table a ton of resources and team and engineering capacity, helping to accelerate John's vision on building out this exciting space. And so as we think about this chart that John was showing before around, the endpoints, the network, and the SaaS side, we are really focused in on that network side today, and we'll start to leverage our existing platform, our existing systems, our existing integrations to help you accomplish the things on the far right-hand side on that SaaS management space. So as we think about this, you don't want to have to build out a second integration into ConnectWise or into Autotask or into your Zendesk, whatever other ticketing systems you have. Let's leverage that one integration. You don't want to have multiple logins to multiple different tools. So how do we leverage the Auvik platform to do a lot of that? It's a lot of technical things that just become part of the plumbing underneath the technology that we're going to have, add to this equation and help you realize that SaaS management vision. As we start to think about the future here and what things look like over time, I think it's not news to anyone really that the definition of the network is changing and the future of work has changed, right? Over the past 2.5 years, we've gone through an upheaval where, everyone has gone home, they've come back to the office, and now we are, every organization here on the line is probably at some different state of a distributed work, whether you're all in the office, you're all remote, you're somewhere in the middle. It doesn't matter where you are today. Work is a thing that you do. It's not a place that you go, right? And so as the Auvik technology evolves, we want to support this future of work and this new network, where you're going to start to see different components coming in that help you discover every application that users are using, whether they're on the traditional office network, whether they're connected from Starbucks, whether they're working from their home. It shouldn't matter where they get done. What is important is that you and your team always have visibility into the SaaS and the business applications that your users are using to get work done. And that when they're having challenges with those applications, whether it be network performance issues or access issues or trying to find the right application to do a job, that your team has the information you need to help support that customer. And so as we continue down this journey, you're going to start to see, a lot more of these integration points as we start to combine this SaaS management side with the network management components as well. So a lot of forward-looking stuff. We're super excited to tackle some of these challenges as we continue to build on the Saaslio SaaS Management roadmap, how we can start to integrate cross-product experiences here as well. So a lot more to come on that. With that in mind, I think it's time to do a little bit of a demo.
Perfect. Well, I'll take over here, Steve, and start showing the folks what they're excited to see. Everybody, we're good to go here on a live demo of the Saaslio product built and ready to serve your business. So at a high level, what I'm logging into and looking at here, and please, by the way, I'm probably going to gloss over a couple screens that you really might have deeper questions for. Ask those. We've got team members in the audience here that are able to help answer those questions for you. But what I log into here is my overall pain and my overall view. Saaslio is built to be simple. We built it to be able to be deployed in under 15 minutes with an administrator who has access to the RMM, group policy, Intune, or whatever endpoint manager you have. It's built and designed that way because we want to give you time back to discovering your environments. So imagine taking that spreadsheet today, and instead of trying to understand what an environment looks like, having data that drives it. Now, each environment is broken down by its own tenant container. You have the ability to drive into an environment tenant and do lots of different and interesting things to support your business. So we'll come back to this high level here in a moment. We're going to dig down into a single environment right now to help you understand more. Now, when you land on this environment pane of glass, what you're going to see here is what we call the SaaS health score. There's lots of areas to work on SaaS in your environment. SaaS is a tough and complicated problem with lots of different inputs. So we've curated some really key reports and really key metrics for you to work against. We could dig into any of these bulbs and understand the score and understand what those scores mean for you and understand what they mean for your business and how to support them. So take a customer business review or internal business review with your quarterly business. Being able to have a report that shows you all of the key things around that SaaS health score. Having a report around the most important apps to talk to your area about and understanding the environment. Or what about the top 10 unapproved or top 10 shadow IT to talk about? We give you really powerful reports that are clean when you're talking to the stakeholders about these environments. We don't want you having to do guesswork, but we want you to be more strategic about what these reports actually mean. So this business review will help you really understand what's going on right off the dashboard into your email systems or PSAs or support ticket systems that you're using internally. We could schedule that up and drop it in an inbox. But here's where this stuff gets really exciting. That spreadsheet that you've built in the past or that spreadsheet that lives in a knowledge base and is stale is now data-driven. When you deploy Saaslio, it's going to take some time to learn the entire organization and make sure that we're presenting data that's not false positives. There's a lot of tools out there that will inundate you with information and put you into information overload where you don't even know where to begin talking about the ecosystem. We wait and we monitor and make sure that we're presenting real apps to you. And by doing that, we're not sending you down the rabbit trail of false negatives. Nobody wants to use DNS. It's clunky. It's not a really scalable solution in today's world to lean into what tools are being used. And so by being embedded in the browser, we're presenting a list of apps that are actually being used and actually being logged into, not just a list of apps that exist with no stack ranking. When I look here, it's showing the top 10 most important areas and room for improvement inside this environment. It's showing me lots of information that I can use to support my journey within this environment. It's giving me the application itself, the actual categories behind it, which key employees are using it. It's giving me how it was found. Was it found with our cloud integration, desktop app, or the browser integration? We're giving you a risk for shadow IT so that you can tackle the most important things first. We're tracking usage across all of these apps so that you can get in and do some root cause analysis. We're giving you key metrics that matter, things like work usage. This app doesn't matter, iCloud here, if people aren't logging in their personal apps, but if the IT policy says that its personal app shouldn't be on a computer, well, that's the next step of improvement. Now you have the ability on some apps where maybe you don't know what they are. Maybe you're not familiar with Shelf Trend, and I wouldn't expect you to be. There's 59,000 apps we have cataloged in our entire repository of Saaslio. Well, we give you information to help support discovering what that means, giving you data like how many users used, what's its core category, what's its description, this eBay analytics tool, why is your customer using it? Instead of asking your customer what they're using, or they're asking the environment what's being used while onboarding the environment, why don't you switch the paradigm and start talking about why you're using these technologies? We enhance all of this data with really deep security logs to help you support your environment. So Shelf Trend's clearly being used here. We've got 8 folks in the environment being used. We know that these are all work accounts. We know they're all logging in with their company domain. We know nobody's sharing or flagging unshared credentials. But if Debbie were to open a ticket for me and say, hey, I need help inside a Shelf Trend, and in a lot of cases today, my reaction would be, well, help me understand what is Shelf Trend, who's in charge, what's its purpose? Well, now I've got the ability to go in immediately into Shelf Trend, understand what was Debbie doing leading up to it? Which browser was she accessing it? Which agent was she accessing it? Was she accessing it with work account, or did she use a personal account and now she's trying to log in with a work account? These kind of things resolve that mean time to resolution when you have related issues around the SaaS ecosystem. These are important and critical data points that you need that Saaslio can provide into your environment. It's more than just a cloud integrator that says Shelf Trend exists. It's deep analytics to help you understand and actually tackle problems. Now, the way that we talk about SaaS management and environment is really working against the top 10 shadow IT apps on a regular cadence. Instead of trying to boil the ocean in the beginning of an environment discovery journey, we want you to start talking about top 10 shadow IT so that you can really build that software inventory over time. And that's why we present this here in a stack rank succinct list. Because as you follow that process, what you're eventually going to find is that 200 user app, or that 200 app list that you started with looks a little bit more like this. Here's all the apps inside of this environment, in this singular environment. Here's all of the owners in charge of it. So when a ticket comes in for Slack, we know that we can reach out to Dawn directly inside that environment and talk to her about it. We know that we've got the data to go in, and if we have an issue inside of Slack, support it. We might find some incidents that we didn't expect to see. Earlier, we had Debbie opening tickets and we see she's still able to log in. But as we pull against a lot of our flags, we're seeing some important things here. Why inside of Slack are people sharing accounts? What's this sales example account that we're seeing Kenneth and other employees used? Why are people accessing it with personal accounts? It doesn't matter the 4-letter acronym that you're adhering to, whether it's CIS controls, NIST, ISO, HIPAA, PCI. These kind of behaviors are non-starters for your organization. And software inventory is a mandatory component of it. So Saaslio can help really streamline a lot of these conversations when supporting internally. Now, we give you a lot of in-depth logs. Just like the Auvik Network Manager, you want to be able to know what's going on in your environment and be able to dig in when a root cause issue happens. So we give you this full pane view that breaks down into every single app, every single user to help discover and support the journey. You have the ability at any time to export these out, and you have the ability to go into our platform, go into our workflow platform, and alert on them. Imagine knowing when a brand new app was installed and that in that PCI controlled environment. Or imagine instead of waiting to find out that the office admin is using Dropbox to transact company details with a vendor, third-party vendor, you get discoverability into it so you can react. We've got endless use cases. One of my other use cases, we had a compliant organization where they were putting sensitive PII data into Airtable, and it had been going on for months. And nobody was able to figure it out because they didn't know that Airtable was even being used. Within deploying the Saaslio product into that environment, we were able to give them the users that were using it, the time being spent in it, when it was adopted, how they're accessing it, and provide that data so that the company could get behind it. An alert drove into their support ticket disk. They were proactive on the shadow IT versus trying to be reactive in the behavior that they're normally taking. So having this data is going to support your journey and supporting your environments. But being multi-tenant helps you in lots of ways. One, we can break down your environments in different panes. Imagine being able to dig into an individual user, know the apps they were using, understand the devices they were using to access it, the browser profiles, the user principal names, the aliases in the cloud that they were using. So when you go to offboard an employee, you can really support that journey. So as we dig through some of these reports, think about how these might empower you in managing your environments. Like a discovery report, when you're trying to understand all the things inside of your environment without guesswork. This report can get a bit lengthy, but the discovery outcome report is going to give you a full breakdown on everything, such as how did they access Box? It looks like we've got users using Google SSO and Azure SSO. This is a business problem being solved. We stack rank it by risk so you know which areas to talk about. Imagine presenting something like this to the team versus an Excel spreadsheet. Or imagine having this kind of data when supporting an environment versus leaning into a knowledge base. This data is data-driven that supports your organizational functions, but also supports your discussions. How much room for improvement is there inside the organization with assignment and ownership? Every single compliance requirement also requires a business owner assigned to it. Or maybe you just want to look at some of the apps and understand behaviors like overlapping tech. Right now, one of the numbers I'm always a fan of tracking, how many file sharing systems are in an environment? On average, we're seeing 2 to 3, but we see outliers with upwards of 7, 8, 9, 10 different file sharing systems. Because if you think about it, the way that SaaS apps are being utilized in today's world is there's a business problem being solved. So when we look at SaaS and we look at the adoption of SaaS, we talk about it in 2 ways. SaaS is only adopted in 1 of 2 manners. One, it's a business problem being solved. Nobody wakes up and decides today's the day for Box.com. Nobody says, I'm finally going to put my information in there and share it out to the world. They have a business problem being solved. And so instead of asking them what they're using, ask what business problem is trying to be solved in that environment. They probably don't realize that OneDrive or SharePoint helps already resolve it. Be strategic internally about the SaaS adoption. Don't be reactive into the way that you're doing it. Furthermore, support your IT operations. Have the ability to use data-driven systems to support the way that you're handling things, such as, what about an offboard checklist? And instead of guessing what that employee used, instead of trying to figure out what Angel Dixon used internally, have a report that says, hey, these things are going to go ahead and be removed when we pull them out of 365. These things we're in charge of at the central IT team. Down here, this is what the line of business or the client's in charge of. But we don't just drop an application list in front of you. We provide the users they're using to access it and alerts, such as, were these shared accounts or did they have this own siloed setup? So being able to present reports like this can really streamline that offboard process. Right now, what's your answer when somebody reaches out and says, we've got to get rid of the VP of sales? They're not hitting their numbers. It's probably pulling maybe an RMM report, crossing it with a couple spreadsheets, hitting the CFO to see what they're paying for, and trying to triangulate it all. It's a very error-prone and manual process, but we believe in letting the employees build their offboard checklists, removing that guesswork and relying on data to help us as IT professionals do our job. So it's not just reports like that that we use to support our journey. We could dig in at how much is an app being used? Is that new ERP that was just rolled in the environment actually being adopted? How about that tool we said that's no longer going to be used? Can we reverse that report and run it backwards? We put all these inside of your ham so that you can actually talk about the environments instead of guess about the environments. And so being multi-tenant, each one of the environments you deploy will have all of this capability and more. We won't have the time today to talk about building a strategic roadmap and all the ways to do a quarterly report and review on a strategic area in your environment. We won't be able to, unfortunately, get into all the configurations that could be set up inside of Insight and Workflow and dig into all the different areas of improvement so you're first to know, being proactive and not reactive. But what we will do is talk about that multi-tenant pain management. Inside of your view at a SaaS management landscape, we dug into one client. All those different things we just did can be done into one individual environment view. So imagine now being at all of your environment views when you're supporting lots of areas to see exactly which environments are using Slack. Being able to dig in and understand there's 4 different environments inside my companies that I'm supporting that are being used. Here's the key users, and being able to dig into that view. Being able to elevate back out and support macro level multi-tenant SaaS management is something that makes the Saaslio technology unique. Every environment's different. Steve alluded earlier to the M&A activity going on in the ecosystem. Imagine a newly acquired organization being integrated on IT and having this list to be able to support and run reports against the 2 different areas where you can identify the tech stack alignment that's there and not. We call this app stack alignment. And the way we talk about app stack alignment is centralizing all the environments where all of the clients you're supporting into one tech stack, making sure that outliers are reported on and alerted on. Imagine being able to go into all of your views and see all the different file shares being used. Or imagine being able to go into all of your views and talking about the different productivity tools that are being used. You'd be surprised when Saaslio gets deployed, we find more information because we go deeper than the competitive landscape out there. By being embedded in the browser, by being smart about what we present in a platform, instead of sending you down false positives, we're able to provide the data that's important and help you support it at a macro level. And so while we won't be able to get into every piece of the technology today, we will stop and talk about some of the important things like app stack alignment, the reports, the alerts, and the things like that. But I'm going to turn it over here in a minute, and we'll be able to maybe answer some of the client questions that we've had in live, talk maybe more in depth if there's anything we think that's worth going into, but also to allow Steve to have a moment to talk about what we're doing for you as an Auvik customer and what today means if you are signed up on the webinar. So I'll stop, but I'll leave the product up in case it requires me to dig somewhere, Steve, but go ahead and take us off.
For sure, yeah. So if anyone has any other questions, I know a few have come in through the chat, which we've sort of handled one off. It might be actually worthwhile doing this one live, and John, I'll put you on the spot for this one. There's a question that came in around explaining the different sources of data, the endpoint agent in the browser, and then the integration into Azure Active Directory. And so, what would be the advantages of doing 1, 2, or all 3 of those sources? And, maybe just talk a little bit about the different data getting from different sources.
Yeah, that's a great question, and one we get a lot. One of the benefits of the way that Saaslio is written to be deployed in an environment is the fact that there's 3 key collectors we talked about in the presentation earlier: the desktop, the browser, and the cloud. Now, I like to talk about the cloud because the cloud is kind of what I say table stakes. If you have a cloud integration, we're going to be able to pull in the single sign-on apps and the apps that you're registering inside of your organization. And we could see those here. We could dig into something like Mimecast or something like ShelfTrend, like we talked about earlier. We could see not only inside of ShelfTrend do we have people accessing it via Azure sign-in, and if we wanted to dig in here and understand a little bit more about that behavior, we could do so, such as all the rich data we can actually provide with this Azure login to help your teams internally support it. But we also look at the browser because we know users don't follow the behaviors they're supposed to. We pull in more information than just the fact that they're being used in Azure. If your user, like Debbie, is following practice, we can look at the users that aren't. Why is Elizabeth Gray logging in via the form? One of the best examples when I talk about form logins, it's those areas where you're not joining via single sign-on. It's those areas where you're not going to be found in a cloud collector. A lot of people call SaaS management or say they're doing SaaS discovery, but they're missing the free stuff. They're missing the signups. They're missing the third-party SaaS, where I'm logging into a government portal or a vendor portal to put information into. The way we collect that is, imagine your password manager. When you're logging into an app, it pops up in the top right to say, hey, save this account into here. Well, we don't touch the password because we don't want that with the 10-foot pole. But what we do take is this event right here in Shelf Trend, where Elizabeth logged in. And we see that Elizabeth logged in with a corporate account. She was using a corporate browser profile. She was not in shared account. It was in a generic account. So in the browser, we're storing events like that, file behaviors, time inside of an app, actual login username. These data points are essential to supporting the operations of SaaS. You can't just know that Shelf Trend is being used. You need to know the richer data, because employees aren't just sitting in the office anymore. I'm accessing SaaS, whether I'm in the airplane on the Wi-Fi and it's dropping every 10 minutes on me, or whether I'm at the coffee shop or a conference. SaaS is being used everywhere. And for the future of work, we believe the way that we collect data is the advantage for you to support your environments. And so those are the three areas we focus in on, because we know it's not the whole picture with only one of those integrations.
Absolutely. I think the way I like to think about it is the cloud-based directory integrations give you visibility into who's using the known applications and who's using their account to do that easy single sign-on to other unknown applications. But you're still missing a whole bucket of where I've gone out and signed up for a third-party application and just used my email address and password. That never hits the cloud identity provider. If I've used my personal account to put work information in on my work device, we're missing that, and we're missing that log in that event. And so there's a ton of visibility that we get from sitting in the browser on that device that I think a lot of the existing tools in the space are missing out on. So,
well, and I think to add to that, Steve, if you want to tee up another question, if there's any dangerous live dig-ins we can do again with you here, to add to that, go to the Airtable scenario. This was one of the environments that we support with Saaslio, where we found those 8 users using Airtable. They had PII data in it. The unfortunate side effect was they found it about 12 months too late as a result of a scan with the Saaslio product. They ended up having to spend about 80 grand supporting Airtable moving forward, because there was so much PII data and so much process built around it. Nobody wants to swallow an $80,000 budget when they didn't even know about it prior, but they were putting their compliance at risk. Imagine the minute somebody had signed up for Airtable, you had an alert in your inbox or an alert in your dashboard that says, hey, you probably should look at this. This is an unsanctioned tool that we don't know anything about, and it's probably got a lot of sensitive data inside of it.
One more question, then I want to get to the surprise right at the end here. And this one is one that we might have to sort of tag team the answer to, because the question is there any support for putting your tool into the flow using firewall-based TLS decryption?
So I can help with the first part, and I'll let you move forward. One of the benefits of being embedded inside of the browser is that we are able to see those usernames and some of those information points without needing TLS decryption. The traditional tools actually are layered at the network and are trying to decrypt as the traffic traverses outbound to the public internet service provider. By being on the endpoint, we actually get a lot richer data. Those TLS decryption mechanisms work to a degree. They're not going to be able to give you rich data like what was downloaded and where did it land on the device, or they're not going to give you usage metrics because somebody used Dropbox for 5 seconds and we see an alert at the network level, but we don't realize they just went in to download something from a third-party vendor versus sign up. So, and the base level of the technology today, by being on the endpoint and being in the browser, we actually don't have to go through the arduous efforts of configuring infrastructure and configuring firewall information to do TLS decryption. We're able to just sit on the device and collect it prior to that transaction. So it makes it a lot easier from our data perspective. Steve, do you want to add to that?
I'll just add to that and back to the point around the future of work that I made earlier. And I think the TLS decryption is an interesting thought experiment as I think about an on-site user, which for a lot of industries sort of never changed. But there's a bucket of users that we might be missing, and there's a bucket of applications they might be accessing off the premises that we might be missing in that situation. Just to add on to everything else you said there as well, John. So absolutely. So maybe if you want to pass the reins back to me, I'll share my screen here. This is sort of the exciting part of the session, in that provided you registered for this webinar before about end of day yesterday, we have actually already gone ahead and enabled SaaS management trials for your account. So as we think about the next couple of weeks, we want our partners to try it out, but we want your feedback. So we'd love it if you could jump into the product, sign up for a trial of SaaS management, roll it out to your users. I think you have up to 250 users that you can deploy it to. So that might be a couple clients for an MSP, that might be a portion of your environment for an internal IT department. But try it out, roll it out, and John and I will be reaching out to you to sort of help you get that started. And just to show what it would look like here within your Auvik dashboard, you're going to see this SaaS management button here on the left-hand side, right at the top level within your hierarchy. So if you look at the hierarchy up here up top, right at the top level, there'll be a SaaS management button. And once you click that, it'll bring you through the process of setting up a trial. Just by clicking, let's start that trial and get going. You'll have everything set up. It just takes a couple of minutes, and then you'll be ready to deploy out the agent to devices within your environment. And I'll get a Pendo guide here just as we start up. But from here within this dashboard, there are a ton of resources that will help point you to deploying it out with your RMM. If you don't see your RMM in there, you can reach out to our team, and we'll be happy to bring you through that as well. So everyone here on the call, you can see the guides, they're guiding me through it. I'll skip through those. Everyone here on the call, feel free to jump into this portal, and there's a SaaS management button on the left-hand navigation. If you don't see it, double check your permissions. It's enabled for super admins on accounts at the top level. And if you still don't see it after double checking the permissions, reach out to myself or John, and we'll get you set up here.
Great.
And I think that wraps it up for today, unless there was any, I moved the chat screen as I sort of went to go through that. If there's any last questions, nope, I think we're good. John, anything to add to wrap things up?
No, I think from our perspective, we really want you to figure out what's out in the environment. We're here to help. It probably isn't the first or the last time you'll see Steve P. or myself. We are excited and energized about it. It's a real complicated business problem. We're happy to guide you, and we're excited the fact that this Better Together story is going to help support your visions and supporting your environments.
Yep. Just one last question. Larry's jumped in saying, so how much? And I know I said we get to that later. Larry, at this point, we are enabling a free trial for our customers. And so as we work through the free trial, we'll be in touch around the pricing front. But at this point, we're encouraging everyone to take advantage of the free trial. If you've signed up on that list and it's enabled for you, it's yours for the next few weeks. And we look forward to getting some feedback from you throughout this process. Process or process? I keep forgetting which one I'm supposed to say, not give away my Canadianness. So
it's the process. It's the process, Steve.
Process. I process the process. Got it. Well, thank you everyone for joining today. Much appreciated. Look forward to seeing some trial signups out after today. And if you have any questions, you can reach us. Best way is saas@auvik.com. SAAS@auvik.com. All right. Thanks so much, everyone.
Cheers.